There are the sleeping dreams and there are the waking dreams. And the sleeping dreams are the messages that we get when our waking self, when our conscious mind is asleep. And depending on your personal approach, your belief system, where you believe dreams come from, they either come from your own unconscious self and parts of yourself, and or come from some collective unconscious, as Jung would say, where our individual minds are joined with the mind of the world.
I've been able to partner with Headspace to bring you a special 14-day free trial to explore all Headspace has to offer. You can think of Headspace as your mind's best friend. Through science-backed meditation and mindfulness tools, Headspace helps you create life-changing habits to support your mental health and find a healthier, happier you. Headspace is proven to reduce stress by 14% in just 10 days. It can also help you relax your mind in minutes, improve focus, and get the best sleep ever. To access your 14-day free trial, simply click the link below or head over to chrissykdm.org/headspace. Today, I'd like to welcome a very special guest, Linda Schiller. Hi, Linda. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Hi, Chrissy. Nice to be here.
Hi. I'm so excited to talk to you today about your passion and your area of expertise. So you are an author of 2 books, PTSDreams and Dreamwork. Is that correct?
The other one is called Modern Dreamwork. Yeah.
Modern Dreamwork. Got it. Okay. So again, I have been so into dreams for my whole life. And so I have a lot of questions to ask you. But before we start in those questions, my first question is, how did you find, or how did this area of work find you? How did you get into DreamWorks?
I like the way you asked the question with both sides, because it did find me and I sort of prepared the ground for it to find me. So from a young age, I've always been sort of a spiritual bent, and I've always been interested in spirituality and non-traditional ways of encountering other worlds, other times, other dimensions, other faces of the divine. And from as a kid doing seances with my girlfriends, and then being in youth group in high school, and just really learning about alternate spirituality and ways of encountering liminal space, both in waking and sleeping life. So I've always had that attraction and interest. But I didn't really pay much attention to my dreams when I was young. After I finished my undergraduate work, I moved to Israel, spent 5 years there, and the land is alive with spirit. It's the birthplace and home of 3 major Western religions, and a whole slew of non-Western religions had their roots there. So when I came back, I didn't go back to Buffalo, New York, which is where I'm from originally. I had a friend in Boston, so I moved to Boston and joined a dance community, among other things, while I finished my graduate work. And a friend of mine from New York City moved to Boston, and I was, I don't know, my late 20s, I guess, or early 30s. And she said, I'm so done with New York. I'm tired of the big city. I need, smaller space. And I don't miss anything about New York except my dream circle. And she said, I'm going to start a dream circle here. Would you be in my dream circle? And I just said, yes. And then my next thing was, what's a dream circle?
Yeah.
So I knew to say yes, even before I knew what I was saying yes to, because it caught me. And a dream circle, in short, is a group of people who get together on a regular basis to talk about and work on and uncover the meanings and directions that their dreams are sending them. And that was the beginning. And I've been doing that for over 40 years. I'm still in my own personal dream circle, and I lead dream groups. I've been doing that for 30, 40 years. I teach classes on dream work. When I work with my clients as a therapist, I do a lot of dream work with them. And then in the last couple of years, I was called to kind of get what I've been doing down on paper and start writing books about it, as well as my blog.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that and for bringing your gift and your passion to the world. As soon as you said dream circle, I was like thinking I need to be in a dream circle.
Mm.
So I love that. Now, you mentioned, I actually don't remember the words that you mentioned, but it actually is kind of my first question because there was something about, the spiritual realms is what you
Yeah.
said, like in and out of sleep, like in our waking life and in our sleeping life. So in all of my journeys and work that I've done, I've learned that our waking life is also a dream. So my first question to you might be really, really basic, but what is a dream? What are our dreams and what are our purposes? What is the purpose of a dream?
It's actually a deceptively basic question because it's actually the core question to ask. So I think you're right on target. So, like the nursery rhyme, right? When we're little, we sing "Row, row, row your boat merrily down the stream." Something down the stream, merrily, merrily, merrily. Life is but a dream.
Yes.
Right? Gently down the stream. That's it.
Right.
Yeah. My daughter's 26 now. I haven't sung it in a little while. So, but so yes, what is a dream? Well, there are so many different ways to answer that question. And I'm going to just, for simplicity, divide it in two parts. There are the sleeping dreams and there are the waking dreams. And the sleeping dreams are the messages that we get when our waking self, when our conscious mind is asleep. And depending on your personal approach, your belief system, where you believe dreams come from, they either come from your own unconscious self and parts of yourself, and or come from some collective unconscious, as Jung would say, where our individual minds are joined with the mind of the world, and or they come as messages from a source, a divine source, or an otherworldly source.
Wow, I love
And
that.
when our conscious mind is asleep, that's the cognitive part of our thinking brain. Our prefrontal cortex is where we do most of our declarative waking thinking. When that part is asleep, it allows our limbic system, which is our emotion brain and our animal brain, to be more awake. And then we're able to tap into wisdom, knowledge, and instincts that we couldn't get in waking life, because it's a different way of grokking, if you know Heinlein's work, Stranger in a Strange Land, and ascertaining the knowledge that we have both within us and that's available to us from other places. So it allows a different part, literally, of our neurobiology, of our brain, to come online, if you will, to give us information that we couldn't have got while we were awake. And we hear a lot of famous artists, musicians, writers who dreamt their song or their artwork or parts of it before they woke. And then Paul McCartney, for example, said he dreamt the entire tune to Yesterday. As is, in his sleep, he woke up, wrote down the notes, but he didn't have the words yet. So for a while he was singing, I think it was bread and cheese, until he finally got yesterday.
Yeah.
And added the words.
Yeah.
So that's the sleeping aspect of dreams.
Okay.
And in our waking world, we have the equivalent of dreams. And Carl Jung talked to us and taught us about synchronicities and things like deja vu and things like being surprised by a synchronicity is kind of an uncanny coincidence in our life. Like you suddenly get an email from a friend you haven't spoken to in 10 years, and you had just talked about them yesterday, and suddenly they reach out to you. That's a synchronicity, Jung would say, and that's the equivalent of a waking dream. It's when our waking mind somehow connects with the mind of the universe, and we see what Jung would call meaningful coincidences in our waking daily life. Those meaningful coincidences are the equivalent of what we call a waking dream.
Yeah. Wow. That is fascinating. Thank you so much for that explanation. And I didn't know until you said that the source of our dreams can come from the one collective mind. And that is so fascinating to me because I'm so focused on oneness and that we are one mind. So that was fantastic. And the synchronicities, I love that you brought that in because sometimes I feel like synchronicities are my religion. Like there's so much they're so fun. They're fun. Right. And then also it's like a nudge of, yes, this is the right path. Yes, this is the right path.
Absolutely. They can be confirmations. The synchronicities can be confirmations. They can be new information. And if we're paying attention, we find them more. We see them more. Right? We see what we're looking for. So if we're asking the universe, either at night or during the day, if we have a dilemma, if we have a question, this is what's called dream incubation. So if you have a dilemma or a question or a choice to make, if you spend a little time journaling at night and write a question and ask your dream source for answers to the questions, you will get an answer as soon as you remember your dreams. You might need to decode your dream and work on unpacking the meaning, but you can do that same thing in waking life, because you can kind of put out to the universe, is it the right time for me to start my own podcast, for example? And just hold that in your mind and look around as you go through your daily life, and you're going to see something that you get an aha that's going to answer that question. I don't know if it happened to you, but that's an example of using dream incubation in waking life.
Yes. And I do want to go further into dream incubation. Actually, I do have other things that I want to ask, but I think we'll just talk about that right now. So in preparing for this podcast, I did look into dream incubation. And last night, in fact, before I went to sleep, I asked to remember the truth of who I am. And I don't remember everything that was going on, but I do remember somewhere in my sleep or in my half awake, half asleep, I call it twilight, the twilight zone. I remember laying there and I felt the light over my heart. That's all I can remember about that. So I'm curious your thoughts on what that might mean or how to decode that specific experience I had last night.
So you asked a very big question, and sometimes those very big questions have a simple answer. And whatever else you dreamt, all the scenes and the characters and the landscape and all those things you didn't remember when you woke up, but you remembered the essence, right? You remembered the core. And sometimes that essence and core is what we call a felt sense. You felt it in your body, and you were aware at a somatic physical level, as well as it sounds like a visual level of a bright light. And I think you said, or you put your hands over your heart.
It was over my heart. Almost like my heart was elevated out of bed if I was laying on my back, like it was up higher than the rest of my body.
So how would you put that experience into words that answer your question? Because from over here, it seems like you got your answer.
Especially right now in this moment, I do believe that we are light. So in the questioning, I had a visceral experience. What that light felt like, even if it was so brief. I mean, it felt very, very brief, like in my memory of what that felt like. It was very, very brief, but it feels like a visceral experience, a visceral answer.
When if we're lucky enough, as it seems like you are, and I'm lucky too, to be thin boundaried people, which means we can traverse worlds easily. Those those mystical experiences almost by definition have to be brief, because we can't function in our daily life and take care of our children or our pets or go to work or do all those things if we're in the middle of a major mystical encounter.
Right.
So we have to put boundaries around it in order to go about our daily life as well.
I love that you just said that, because that's, the theory or the truth about being veiled coming into this human experience. Like, we are veiled because it's hard to function if we're just in that, light being space. So yes, I love that. Thank you so much. I have some other questions. Like, when you were describing what dreams were, you were talking about, different reasons or different sources that we get the dreams from,
Right.
which kind of go in line with my next question. Why are there different kinds of dreams? And what I mean by that is, well, one of your books is specifically on, nightmares. Sometimes I have recurring dreams. Sometimes I'll be playing basketball with my kids and then dream about basketball that night. Sometimes, I have premonitions. I dream of things that either are actually happening while I'm dreaming or about to happen. How do you describe why we have different kinds of dreams? Are they because they come from different sources?
Well, that's a great question. And I can say maybe, but I can tell you why. So the sources of our dreams, nobody knows for sure, right? So some people encounter their departed relatives from the other side. And there's a difference between having a dream where your grandmother or someone shows up in your dream and having a visit from grandma in your sleep. There's again, that word visceral, there's a felt sense of difference, and people who have had visits from departed loved ones, human or non-human. They're, my pet, one of my cats comes and visits sometimes, and that's a visit as opposed to a dream. And I can tell the difference because it feels different. So there's an example of one source of dreams that I hadn't even mentioned before. But wherever dreams come from, whether it's from inside us, from the world mind, from the divine, from departed relatives coming to give us a message, there are multiple layers of simultaneous truth in every dream. And in both of my books, I talk about a system that I created called the Pardes method that talks about these multiple layers of meaning that are simultaneously true. And the word Pardes is a Hebrew word, and literally it means orchard. And the system of Pardes is from the Kabbalah, a mystical way of studying the Holy Scripture. So it has 4 layers to it. The P stands for the pshat, or the simple basic layer. The R stands for the remez, or the hinted at layer. The D stands for the drash, or the revealed layer. And the S stands for sod, which means secret or mystery. So any dream we have potentially holds all of those layers at the same time. We don't always get to all of those layers when we work on them, A, depending on how much interest we have, and B, depending on how much time we have. So if you dreamt about playing basketball with your kids and you had played basketball last night, that would be, oh, that's the simple layer, right? Okay, I did this yesterday, I dreamed about it today, one and done, right? And that's absolutely legitimate. It's totally true that was what the dream meant. Now, if we were going to take that simple dream about playing basketball with your kids and say, oh, I wonder what else is there in that dream. If we want to look, if we want to peel back another layer. So if we're going to look at the hints, we look at the associations we might have to the dream. Okay, so in the dream, what was happening? Do you want to, was that just an example or a real thing?
No, that was just an example. I have plenty of real things. I just want to pause and say I'm absolutely just amazed at how much information, right? Those 4 layers of information that our dreams carry. That's so fascinating.
I know.
So if we were going to get into some of my dreams, I would like to explore more about the recurring dreams.
Sure.
So So actually, okay, this is kind of more of a life experience as well, but my whole life I dreamed about going to Hawaii. And in my dream, it was, oh my gosh, like I'm finally there. I'm finally there. And then I'd wake up and I wasn't there. So March of this year, I went to Hawaii. And we went to Pearl Harbor when we were in Hawaii. And my sobriety date is December 7th, the same day that Pearl Harbor was bombed. So we went to Pearl Harbor. I'm crying just because I'm feeling so much there. And when we got to the USS Arizona, I turned around and those were the images in about half of my recurring dreams where I was going to Hawaii.
Well, let me just say, Chrissy, that you are one strong dreamer.
That's why I'm so excited to talk to you today.
So there's like a lot we can talk about with that dream. One is,
Right.
Yes, one layer of dreaming is when we peek around the corner of time and space.
Okay.
And that's what you did, right? That's what a premonition is. You know, I think we all have the ability, and we probably do all have premonition dreams, but if we don't record and remember our dreams, we don't know that they're premonitions. We don't remember we had them. So that's why keeping a journal and keeping track of your dreams is such an important tool for doing deep dream work, because you can go back and look through a journal from 2 or 3 years ago and all of a sudden go, oh my God, this thing I dreamt, it just happened.
Yeah.
But if you hadn't written it down, you would not have remembered that you had dreamt it.
Right. Now, I have a question about that. I know that there's a lot more that we're going to talk about, but, you know, in recording your dreams, what do you suggest? Do you suggest right when you wake up in the morning or right when you wake up from the dream? Like, what would be the ultimate practice? I know for me, I forget, and usually it's later in the day, something will happen and then I'll remember, oh, I dreamt about that.
Yeah.
But what do you suggest as far as a journaling practice?
So for those of your generation as well as mine who could still write by hand, keep a journal right beside your bed, like right there on your like night table. And you know, no demerits if you're going to type it into your phone or your other device. I mean, that counts too, or even record it, you know, and then you'll transcribe it later.
Yeah.
The key is to get the most juice and the most detail of your dream is to try to record it, however you're doing it, as soon as you can when you wake. So some people are able to wake up at night, write down their dreams, and then go back to sleep. Some people, for whatever reason, can't. So if you are able to wake up in the night and remember, write it down then, record it into your device then, or at least jot down a few words to trigger your memory. If you can't do the whole thing. There are actually little book lights you can get, or little pen lights, that if you sleep with a partner and you don't want to wake someone, or you just don't want a bright light in your own eyes, you can just flip on your little pen light and have enough light to write. Barring that, as soon as you wake in the morning, if you remember, and it's for practice, it's like any other kind of practice, it gets better with practice, to hold still for a minute when you wake up and just ask yourself, did I have a dream? See if your memory goes yes, and then try to write it down before even getting out of bed, before moving, because the minute we start to move our physical bodies, the dream is poof, right? Like a mist or a smoke, it just kind of dissipates.
Yeah.
And then if we're lucky, we recapture it later in the day. You're standing in the shower, you're cooking dinner. It's like, oh yeah, that dream. Go write it down there. As soon as you remember it, it's not too late. Catch what you can.
Got it. Awesome. Thank you. I know for me, I have a hard time going back to sleep.
Yeah.
So I, a couple of nights, have pulled out my phone and did an audio recording. So that way I didn't have to turn on lights and I could just speak it out. And, not try to disturb my slumber. But I know there's a lot of people that don't have trouble going back to sleep.
So you have to respect yourself and your own rhythms. And having a good night's sleep is worth its weight in gold. So you don't want to interrupt that if you don't have to. So totally. And also, I don't know about other people, but sometimes if I'm writing in that half awake, half asleep state, I wake up in the morning and I can't even read my own handwriting. So there's that. So recording it, might even be better.
I've had that experience too. What did I even write? It was dark.
Yeah.
So now, is the journaling and recording your dreams, is that, I forget the wording that you used, but decoding the soul, is that the path to do it? How do you use dreams to reveal more about who you are and what you're...
That's a really, really good question. But if you don't mind, I'd love to go back to your Pearl Harbor dream.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because there's so many things in that dream, and maybe, sourced in, your actual dream and then your lived experience, some of the questions, and that'll be more personal for you.
Okay.
So you asked about reoccurring dreams.
Yeah.
So for starters, reoccurring dreams, I call them an SOS from our unconscious.
Okay.
There's something that our higher self, our unconscious self, our subconscious self, some part of us wants us to know and do. The completion of knowing is doing.
Yeah.
It could be a small symbolic act, or it could be a complete life change. But when we're getting a reoccurring dream, whether it's a nightmare or whether it's a pleasant dream, there's something sort of nagging us to say, wake up to your dream, like pay attention here. We want you to know something and then do something. And here's a really awesome synchronicity for you. You were finally in Hawaii this year in March. I was in Hawaii in February.
Really?
I haven't been in Hawaii in 30 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So that is very cool.
Yes. I love that synchronicity.
Yeah. I actually was speaking, I had a book event at the Barnes and Nobles on Maui, so that's why I went over. So it was really fun.
Yeah.
But
very awesome.
Your experience of being at Pearl Harbor, and December 7th was your sobriety date.
Yeah.
And then you turned around. So moving. You turned around, and the landscape of where you were standing was the landscape of your dreams.
Yeah. When we were, in some of my dreams, because I had never been, I remember thinking, this doesn't look like Hawaii, right? Because it wasn't the beach, or it wasn't what I had seen in pictures. And so in my dream, it was a little confusing. Like, this just looks like, I grew up in San Francisco. And so it kind of looked like San Francisco, like a bay. And so in my mind, I thought, well, maybe that was just because I'd never experienced it before. But when we were there, I saw the harbor and I saw my dreams back at me. Not every single dream I had about Hawaii was about Pearl Harbor, but I'd say about a good half of them were.
So that date for you was a real spiritual awakening, right?
Yes.
And then we connect back to the dream that you asked the question about last night, and the answer came that it's the light in your heart. And I would put those two things together. And if we say in the dream world, if this were my dream, right? Because I can't tell you what a dream means. I can guide you, I can ask you questions, but you're the ultimate decision maker on, yes, this feels right to me. But if this were my dream, I would say that's a real moment of enlightenment, of truth, of December 7th will always be the day that your heart became enlightened.
Yeah. I say that June 4th is my birthday, the day I was born. But December 7th was the day that I chose to live.
Oh.
And the truth is, I didn't, I really actually wasn't aware that December 7th, I mean, I knew, but it didn't like register in my awareness or my consciousness that it was the same day that Pearl Harbor was bombed, until about a year or so into my sobriety. I'll be sober 10 years this December. So it was about a year or so after that I put the two together, and then when I was there, I was like astonished at how many people lost their lives on the day that I chose to live. And just not in a sad way. I cried with no label, actually. It was just expression and
release.
Yeah, and kind of an awareness or connection to like to all of life and death. And yeah, I know without a doubt, had I not gotten sober on that day, I probably would not be alive today.
So your life, your reclaiming of your life on that day, and your choosing life on that day, honors both yourself and your choice, and honors all those who died on that day and gave their life.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's really powerful. I'm really glad you brought us back to that. Honestly, I thought maybe I had a past life, or maybe
well, you know, that's not impossible either. I don't know if in your actual family or ancestors or past lives that aren't ancestors, anybody was in World War II in any way, shape, or form. And if anyone fought, if anyone died, if anyone was in a concentration camp, if anyone was in Japan, if anyone was in Europe, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. I have done some research, but I haven't dived too deep into that. But it did lead me to another curiosity right now to ask you. First, do you believe in past lives?
I do, yes.
Okay. So can we, I'm like, well, first I need to know that. Can we access past lives through our dreams?
I would say absolutely yes, but that's one of the layers.
Okay.
And can we scientifically prove whether or not it's a past life or not? I don't think we can yet.
Right.
However, we're getting closer to that because there's a relatively new science called epigenetics, which is epi means on or above, and genetics is our DNA code that shows us that we inherit things from our ancestors that they lived through that we didn't, but yet our genetic code is affected by their life experience and gets passed on from generation to generation.
Yeah.
So science is starting to catch up, I think, with what the mystics and the scholars have known for a long time.
Yeah. Very cool. So I have a whole page of questions here because it's such a juicy topic. There's so many pieces to, pull apart. And one of the things that, I've just done as a hobby, right? Not really any like formal practice, just occasionally I'll have a dream and I'll go online and Google what is the symbolism of this. So my first question around that is, are there like symbols that represent, I guess, the same thing across all dreams, or are they like specific to the dreamer?
So that's a good question. And there's so much out there about like interpret your dreams and this means that, and if you dream of this, it means that. I say take all that stuff with a grain of salt, like a really big shaker of salt, because dreams are idiosyncratic to the dreamer. So you may develop, if you're keeping track of your dream, or any of the listeners are, you're going to develop a compendium, if you will, of symbols that are your personal dream symbols, that when you dream of a horse, for example, it usually means freedom. Right? Somebody else who dreams of a horse can think, oh my God, I'm working so hard. It's a real workhorse. Right? That's both true, but there's so many different associations to each symbol that we may have. And more than one meaning can be relevant at any given point in time. So by all means, look them up, see whether or not it resonates, right? Check and say, when I dream about horses and I looked up online, oh, when you dream of a horse, it could mean this or this or this. See which one you resonate with. Don't just accept it, no pun intended, whole hog, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah,
That's,
and your symbols can be varied too, right?
yeah. I love that because, yeah, like I live in Arizona.
Right.
And it's a desert and there are scorpions and we've encountered them. And I'd had a dream. I mean, I've had several dreams about the scorpions. And every time I look it up, it's, well, if it's this color, if it's that color, if it's this big, or if you're killing it, or if it's stinging you, or if, you know, and so it's like, wait a second, I don't even know like which way to go. So I love that whichever one resonates would be the one.
So one layer for you, if you dream of a scorpion, is to ask yourself, have I seen a scorpion recently? Did a scorpion get in my garden, or did I have a near escape of a scorpion sting?
Right.
So that's the simple layer, right? The simple basic layer. And then you say, all right, when I think of a scorpion, right? So when you think of scorpions, without censoring yourself, just like free association, you know, what do you think of when you think of scorpion?
I honestly think like the most fascinating, amazing creatures that better not get anywhere near me or crawl on me or be in my sight because they're so scary.
All right. So you think they're fascinating and scary.
Yes.
Any other?
So I was stung once and it like took me out. I'm 5'8" and it stung me on my foot and my entire leg was paralyzed for like a day.
Wow.
2 days. Yeah. So it was a baby. So they actually release more venom. But as I was thinking about this creature that's this big, taking out almost half my body, I started researching.
Yeah.
And they fascinate me now, but they scare me.
Healthy fear sometimes.
Uh-huh.
You know, our fight flight response, you know, is ancestral. It's from our animal instinctual self. And we should be scared of scorpions because they can really hurt us if we don't watch out.
Yeah.
But what's really interesting, so, you know, before you told me the story, I had another association to scorpions, which is the astrological sign, Scorpio. So from my perspective, living in Boston, not in Arizona, and being a cusp baby between Scorpio and Sagittarius, my first thought was the zodiac sign Scorpio. And Scorpio is a water sign. It's a deep mystical sign. So there's all that stuff.
Yeah.
But then when you told me the other things that actually happened to you in your real life. So if I had that experience that you had of being stung, I might think if I dream of a scorpion, I might want to look for the metaphors here. I want to say, am I feeling stung by someone or something in my life? Or am I feeling paralyzed by something in my life? Because your leg was paralyzed for a day or two.
Yeah.
Or is there something deceptively small that I had better watch out for and be careful of in my life? Right. So those would be some ideas I might have if I had that experience and I dreamt.
I love that. I never actually thought to ask those questions. I took the like that top layer of what was actually happening. And in the dream, it was either I walked away from it or I killed it without a lot of fear, or I faced my fear. So I felt like, oh, I'm having these dreams to show me that I can face my fear.
Well,
but I love the questions that you offered too.
So what's true in your dreams is the best barometer of how do you tell what kind of dream you have is not only the narrative story, because you have a narrative story. First, you just told me, oh, there was a scorpion, but then you told me the rest of the dream, right? I either walk away from it and I'm fine, or I kill it and I'm fine. And then we want to check, what's the emotional narrative in the dream?
Yeah.
So I don't know how you felt at the beginning, the middle, and the end of the dream, but in both of those scenarios, you don't get hurt.
Right.
So somehow you are dreaming about conquering a fear or walking away from something that can sting you, as opposed to, uh-oh, will I get stung? In your dream, you already walked away from it.
Yeah.
So that's really cool.
Yeah, very cool. Oh my gosh, this is like so fun. This is why I'm so into dreaming, and I could probably talk to you for hours and hours and hours. And there's a lot I want to get to. So I wanted to ask you, I actually don't have this experience very often. Sometimes I am aware that I'm dreaming, but lucid dreaming.
Yeah.
Can you describe a little bit about what that is and why we might experience that?
So lucid dreaming means that you're aware that you're asleep and dreaming while you are asleep and dreaming. It's sort of a consciousness within your sleep of, oh, this is a dream. Why this happens, there's any number of different explanations. And basically it has to do with what's the balance of the biochemical bath that your brain is getting from sort of the scientific end of things at that moment in time. That's one answer. The other can be whether or not you tend to be a thin boundaried person. And there's no judgment if someone's thick or thin boundaried, right? People are right brain, people are left brain. And we need them all, right? We need people who do the math and the science, and we need people who are the mystics and the dreamers. And ideally, we cross midline and we can access both sides of our brain. So I think when we get skilled at lucid dreaming, we are actually accessing and crossing the midline of corpus callosum, that seam in the middle of our brain, and connecting the two sides of our brain. So we have a conscious awareness while we have a sleeping state. And there's a whole lot being written, and people are really interested in these days. So there's ways you can train yourself if someone is interested to practice and do various methods and techniques to try to learn to lucid dream or to get better at lucid dream, if that's an interest someone has.
Yeah, thank you so much. I have never really understood it until right now. Now, the question I have next has to do with when I know that I am dreaming. This occurs for me when I'm in a dream and I wake up and I'm still in a dream.
Yep.
And then I wake up and I think I've been 4 layers in at a certain point. Can you explain what that is?
Yes. You are describing floating in and out of what, again, Jung would call the hypnopompic or hypnagogic zones, that liminal in between space when you're just falling asleep but not quite asleep, or you're just waking up and you're not fully awake yet. But it sounds like what's happening to you is you float back and forth between those two states of being, between being fully asleep and between being fully awake. You go kind of halfway there and then drop back into sleep, and halfway there and then drop back into sleep. And so you're inhabiting sort of two time spaces at once. And sometimes, and I've had this happen too, it's kind of fun. I'm in that liminal space, that in-between zone, and I'm conscious that I've been having a dream, and I want to dream it more. I'm not done. And I can kind of will myself to go back. If I don't have to set the alarm, thank God.
Right.
Sometimes I have no choice. Right.
Right.
I do have a choice. I can will myself to kind of drift back or drop back into the sleep state to dream on, to dream it further.
Yeah.
It sounds like you do that too.
Yeah. I love this. This is so fascinating. I can't wait to dive in and get even further into your work and what you've written about. I am curious, why do we have nightmares?
Right. Well, that is the topic that generated my second book, the whole thing. And I joke and I say that was my, during the pandemic when we were kind of all in lockdown for 3 years, different people did different things. They took up different things they hadn't done before, knitting or baking. I wrote another book. That was my pandemic project because we were living in a collective worldwide nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
The waking nightmare of COVID was something that touched everyone on the planet. And people were reporting the strangest, craziest, wildest dreams. So we have nightmares when some part of our being is not at peace, is not in alignment, has not finished processing traumatic or difficult events that have happened to us. It could be things that happened a long time ago. It could be things that happened recently. It could be things we're currently going through. So there's a difference between what we would call post-traumatic nightmares, PTSDreams. PTSDreams is the title of the book. That implies that something that happened in our past, we haven't fully recovered from, we haven't fully healed from, we haven't fully understood enough and made enough of a difference in our waking life to not have our wise inner self be saying, wake up, there's something more you need to know and do. If we ignore these nightmares, they will get more and more insistent.
Yeah.
They will nudge us. They will say, all right, you're not paying attention to me. I'm going to up the ante. I'm going to escalate. I'm going to give you no choice. And that's when someone finally says, okay, I give up. What do I need to know? What do I need to do? Hopefully that's their response.
Yeah.
And the dreams that are mildly unpleasant or a little bit upsetting, but not like off the charts scary, those doesn't necessarily mean you're healing from trauma, but it means there's something that you're uncomfortable with or something unpleasant that happened or something you need to come to terms with. So again, it goes back to the emotional barometer in the dream. When you go to the doctor's office and they say, like, rate your pain 0 to 10.
Yeah.
So if your pain in a dream is 0, then you're probably having a nice, pleasant dream.
Right.
If you're emotional upset, whether it's terror or fear or anger or whatever it is, it's kind of like, oh, it's a 3 or a 4. I'm kind of uncomfortable, but it's not really bad. That's a bad dream. But if you start getting above a 6 or 7 up in those upper numbers, I'm really terrified, or I'm really enraged, or I am grief-stricken, then you're dealing with some kind of a nightmare.
Yeah.
That's that
Wow, I love
emotional
how
barometer.
I love how you described that. And I noticed that most of when you said the emotional temperature, it was like, I noticed that I don't actually wake up with, oh, that was a great dream, or, oh, that was scary. Most of my remembrances are, that was weird. That was weird.
Interesting.
But
So it might be interesting for you, and you might not want to, because you are on a path where, because of all your work and your own recovery process, you have been attending to and dealing with your emotional self and life, for a long time. But it might be fun to ask yourself, what's the emotion in my dream? So you write down the narrative, whatever it is that was weird or interesting, and then you say, okay, I go back, beginning, middle, end of the dream. What was I feeling?
Yeah.
That's another layer of information for you.
Yeah. I was just thinking that when I start my dream journal again, I'm going to do the rating that you talked about, from 0 to 10, and, kind of see where those track as, days and weeks go by as well.
And we want to remember there can be 2 different scales. One is the upset scale, right? How big is the upset in my dream? And the other can be like the good vibe scale, right? Or the pleasant scale. How happy or how delighted or how, joyful am I in my dream? That's that's not 0. That's a different scale, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're 2 sides of the same coin, but you want to make sure you're not saying 0 when you're really like thrilled to beat the band.
Yeah. I love that. So again, the intention of the podcast is to bring value to anyone who's listening. What would be, I guess, your advice? How can someone use their dreams? Like if they've if they just buy your book, or they've never bought your book, or they've never actually heard about dreams, what would be some ways that they could use their dreams to help them in whatever it is they're going through right now?
So some people, first of all, if you're interested in your dreams, you're going to be remembering them more. If you're not interested, you're probably not listening to this podcast. Or maybe you just happen to come across it, and after listening, you'll be more interested. But those who are already interested are going to remember them more because, we notice what we value. So you can use your dreams to enhance your creative life. You can ask for inspiration for your writing or your art or your dance. Many, many people have used their dreams both purposefully and accidentally in that way. So that's one thing. Dreams are just a great source of entertainment too. They're really fun to pay attention to. So you can have adventures at night. You can go to other times, other places, other realms. You can use your dreams as a portal to connect with the spiritual self, a portal to the divine, to the source, to whoever or whatever you believe is larger than your simply physical body on this earth. It's a wonderful portal to connect with both healing resources and simply a source of awe in your life as well. And then problem solving. Dreams to solve problems, a dilemma, a question you have, and sort of hand in hand with problem solving are dreams for healing. You're struggling with something in your life, physically, spiritually, emotionally, ask your dreams for advice. There's where the dream incubation really comes in. And not to despair or dismay if you don't understand your dream right away, or if you don't remember it right away. The more you practice remembering your dreams, it's kind of like priming the pump, the better and better you'll get at it. And I tell people, remember to value everything that comes through in the night, even if it's just a word or just a snippet, because one word can speak volumes. So if you wake up, if you ask your dream, how am I going to heal from my X problem or my X pain in my life? And you wake up and you dreamt the word scorpion. Let's borrow your language there. It's like, you have no idea what scorpions mean to you. Spend some time meditating, looking up, associating with scorpion. See if there's an answer hidden there. And if you don't come up with an answer, tell your dream muse at night, thank you very much for sending me that single image, but I don't get it. Can you please send me a dream that's clearer or more specific or has more detail so I can really understand what I'm meant to know?
Yeah, I love how you describe that. Like, we can ask, and if we don't understand, we can ask for more specific. So that's amazing. Is there any specific like format or way of asking for information before you go to sleep at night?
It depends on what you want to know. Sometimes you might go to sleep and say, I just want to have a dream. Let me remember my dream. Perfect. That's wonderful. If you have a specific question or issue or dilemma, or you want guidance about something, spend a little time if you want. It could be 5 minutes, it could be an hour if you're a big journaler, whatever your practice is and whatever works for you, kind of fleshing it out, whatever you're looking for. If you try to end your writing with as specific a question as possible around your question or dilemma or issue, the higher the likelihood that you'll remember it, that you'll understand it more easily, right? So the more specific the question, the higher the likelihood that you'll understand it more quickly. Even if it comes encoded in metaphor, the metaphor will not take days or weeks or years to work through. It might just take a little while.
Right. Well, gosh, this has been such an amazing conversation. I have a few questions to ask that don't really have to do with dreaming, but just have to do with the truth of the universe. So before I ask those, I want to ask you, is there anything else in regards to dreams or your books or anything that you're working on that you'd like to share, or that you'd like anyone who's listening to know?
Thank you. So I have 2 books out right now. They're both through the publisher Llewellyn Worldwide Publishing. And the first book is called Modern Dreamwork, and the subtitle is New Tools for Decoding Your Soul's Wisdom. And the second book is called PTSDreams, and the subtitle is Transform Your Nightmares from Trauma Through Healing Dreamwork. And I also write a blog, and my website is Linda Schiller. That's LINDAYAELSCHILLER. That's the website.com. And I just redid my website, so I'm very proud of it. And you can access the blog through that. But the blog title itself is Awake to Your Dreams. And I have some recent blogs that I've just started reposting, but I took a break for a long time because I was writing another book. But my first book actually came from writing my blogs. I put them all together when the time was right and say, okay, here's the source of the books. So you can go back if you're interested and read old ones. The newer blogs where I'm heading now is working with dreams and ancestors, actually.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
that's the next piece. Yeah.
I love that you said that. I hear that's a pretty common thing, that the blogs become books. So
Apparently, yeah, it certainly worked for me.
Yeah. And we'll include all the links to your books, to your website, to your blog. We'll include them in the description of this video. All right. So the 3 questions, I'll start with the first one. And I know that you talked about spirituality and your past. So how would you define God or source, or however you refer to the divine?
How much time do you have? I know we're probably just about out of time.
I know.
I'm thinking of the best way to respond to that. It is what connects us to ourselves, to our highest selves, to each other, and to that which we do not know. I think that God or source or spirit is the all, the universal knowing that we can access, and that is a place of being held, guided, and a place to return to. It's home with a capital H. Home with a capital H.
I loved how you described that. Thank you so much for that answer. The next question I have, I know we talked a lot about the sleeping life in today's episode. What would you say the purpose of life is? I know these are big questions.
The purpose of life. You know, I think that's a question from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Universe, right? Did you ever read that?
No.
It's a really old book. I have to reread it someday. It's been a long time, but I think that's the question. And I think the answer was 46.
Yes, it was a number. I do remember that. Yeah.
So I'm going to borrow a page from the Hitchhiker's Guide, and I'm going to tell you the purpose of life is 18. And I'll tell you why. 18 is the numerical value of the word chai, which has 2 letters in Hebrew, chet, yud, and in gematria, which is numerology in the Kabbalah, it's 10 and 8. So life literally is 18.
Wow. That was very cool. I love that answer. Now I'm going to tell my kids.
Oh, cool. I'm guessing they're not 18 yet, though.
One of them is.
Wow. Then I would not have guessed you had children of that age.
Yeah, he just graduated high school.
Congratulations.
So, yeah. Okay, final question. If you could take one piece of wisdom that you have now and give that piece of wisdom to your younger self, what would that piece of wisdom be?
I'm chuckling because there's something I tell the younger people that I work with, my younger clients, and it just like pops right up. So I tell them that if you now could care less about what other people think of you, not only will you be happier, but you will save so much money in therapy later on in your life. So be true to yourself.
Yeah.
Listen to your own real wisdom. Check with your body, check with your mind. Don't pay attention to the shoulds out there. That's what I'd say right now.
Thank you so much for that. I loved how you said, check in with yourself. Yes, if I would have known that a long time ago.
Everybody, right?
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't have had the experiences that led me to where I am today, but I think I would have saved myself a lot of suffering.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you would like to add before we close?
Just thank you so much, Chrissy, for this opportunity to meet you and to talk with you. And I wish you the very, very best with your new venture. And if in the future you want to talk about dreams again, I'm happy to come back.
Yes, absolutely. I was thinking maybe a live where we have people ask questions.
Oh, I've done that with other
Yeah,
people.
very cool.
So when we get to
Awesome.
that stage, that's fun. I enjoy that.
All right. So stay tuned, everyone listening to a future live where we talk with Linda and we get to ask her questions live. So again, thank you so much for being here with me today and for putting yourself out there and gifting your wisdom and your passions to the world and just for being you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Chrissy.
I would like to personally thank you for tuning in to this episode. If you haven't already, please be sure to like this episode, subscribe to my channel, and turn on notifications so that you never miss a beat. And if you really resonated with this content, please share it with all of your friends so that collectively we can expand our consciousness. Have a very blessed week.